What's up, Graham? It's Guys here. So this is absolutely insane. New reports now show that it could take as much as $250,000 a year just to be considered middle class in America. And if you thought that was bad, it gets worse. A recent study found that just as many people making over $200,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck as those earning under $100,000 a year, meaning unless you're in the top 1%, it's becoming nearly impossible to get ahead. That's why we need to break down exactly how to optimize your money at every financial milestone, the strategies to supercharge your income no matter where you're starting, and the shortcuts to build wealth faster than you ever thought was imaginable. Because here's the truth, the sooner you understand how the game is played, the faster you're going to avoid some really serious mistakes. Although before we start, if you appreciate brutally honest videos and you find them helpful like this, it would mean the world to me if you hit the like button or subscribe if you haven't done that already. That's all I ask, and as a thank you for doing that, here's a picture of a baby porcupine. So thanks so much, and also big thank you to Cook Unity for sponsoring this video, but more on that later. Alright, now before we talk about managing hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, let's talk about the milestone that makes the biggest difference, and that would be $10,000. In terms of building wealth, it's largely said that your first $10,000 changes everything. And I'm here to say that yes, it certainly does. $10,000 is an amount that'll cover most financial emergencies that are minor. It gives you a little breathing room knowing that you have enough money to purchase groceries. And it gives you some confidence knowing that if you were to lose your job, you're not immediately going to be out on the street. So I think it goes without saying, do whatever it takes to get your first $10,000 as soon as possible, as long as it's legal. However, in terms of leveling up and using this $10,000 as a launching pad to eventually making hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, here's what I found that actually works. 1. Learn skills that make you money. Hands down, at this stage, getting good at whatever you decide to do will be your biggest driver of wealth. And for me, that was sales. I worked as a real estate agent, and every waking moment was spent reading books, shadowing top agents, and otherwise being irreplaceable for anyone who wanted to hire me. That's why it's so important just to be good at what you do, and then you could move on to number 2, optimizing your income. Again, at this stage, your income is going to have a much greater impact in your wealth than investment returns. So use that to your advantage. Work extra hours, take on overtime, learn new skills. I'll be honest, if you have any amount of free time, don't waste it. Put that time to good use, because as I'm about to show you, it'll 100x in the future. 3. Stay out of debt. The fact is, this is the point where any debt you take on could potentially set you back decades, so do your best to only buy what's necessary that you could afford outright. 4. Network 24/7. I know this isn't really talked about very much, but the early relationships that you make could pay off huge in the future, more than you ever would have realized. Push yourself to connect with people who are further ahead than you and have the skills that you want to develop, because sometimes that one right person can completely change the trajectory of your entire life. And 5, beware of lifestyle inflation. Unfortunately, this is something you have to be mindful of throughout every income bracket, regardless of how much you make. Otherwise, you could be like this person making $500,000 a year living paycheck to paycheck. So do your best to start living below your means now, saving everything you can, and eventually you're going to level up to $100,000. Honestly, as much as I love to say that your first $10,000 changes everything, the reality is that the first $100,000 gives you freedom. And here's what I mean. At this level, you have enough to protect yourself against most major financial emergencies, and your everyday stresses are less likely to be tied to living paycheck to paycheck, but rather long-term career growth, personal fulfillment, and your ability to take calculated risks. On top of that, it's also said that once you hit $100,000, you're already 1/4 of the way to $1 million. That's because at this level, your investments start doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. For instance, it might take you 5 years for your investments to grow from $100,000 to $200,000, but it takes just 3.7 years to grow from $200,000 to $300,000, and 3 years from $300,000 to $400,000, all the way up to just 1.3 years to go from $900,000 to $1 million. Honestly, as long as you just don't f it up, $100,000 is the point where you could start making some serious cash. And if you want to be able to turn this into $1 million as fast as possible, here's what I recommend. First, invest consistently. This is the point where you should be plowing as much money as humanly possible into your investments. Ideally, you set up a schedule where you could dollar cost average no matter what happens, and as long as you just stick with this consistently, it's only a matter of time until you hit $1 million. Second, avoid massive mistakes. I hate to say it, but most people make their biggest financial mistakes between $100,000 to $900,000. Like on paper, it seems as though this should be a big enough amount of money to be financially free, but in reality, it's really not enough to do whatever you want. People over-leverage, they take risks that they shouldn't, and they increase their monthly overhead to a point where they just get boxed in. 3. Prioritize your income. Now, I know I've always advocated for saving as much money as possible by skimping out on things like Starbucks, but there's really just no way around it. At this point, you're going to see outsized returns by just going and making more money. 4th, understand how taxes work. Since every dollar you make and save at this level is so impactful, please do me a favor, hire a really good accountant, make yourself familiar with every tax optimization strategy available, and do everything you can to save money legally that you don't have to spend unnecessarily. And finally, 5th, practice patience. All you could really do here is to stay consistent and avoid making mistakes. And the good news is that if you have $100,000 saved and a savings rate of $24,000 a year, you're just 15 years away from hitting $1 million. And that is where a lot of the fun begins. Although before we go to that, I know we usually talk money here in the channel, but here's another recent data point that you should probably be made aware of. The average American household now spends more than $500 a month on groceries, and even crazier is that a third of that goes to waste. That is exactly why it's so important to get back into a routine. Like with summer now over, people are gonna get busy with work, eat less healthy, and start sacrificing quality for the sake of saving time. That's why I've been literally using our sponsor, Cook Unity, all the time. For those unaware, Cook Unity delivers restaurant-quality, pre-packaged meals delivered straight to your door for an amazing price. I've been able to eat and try foods like this incredible grilled Asian hanger steak made by Chef Stacy Barang and this Peruvian flat iron steak made by Chef Nelson Brizuela. All of this tastes like I'm eating food cooked from a high-end restaurant for a fraction of the price. Like when I broke down the cost of eating each meal, it was cheaper than what I was spending at Chipotle for way higher quality. And I'm not even exaggerating. I have no idea how they stay in business, but I'm not questioning it because I really enjoy their food. Plus, there's no grocery shopping, no meal prep, no cleanup, no dishes. Just heat it up and it's ready in minutes. Not to mention, their flexibility is amazing. You could choose between 4 to 16 meals a week, pause or cancel at any time, and you could personalize everything. I typically go and order the high-protein meals under 600 calories, but there's truly something for everyone, no matter what you like. So if you want to save time, save money, cut food waste, and get back into a routine by eating healthy, I would highly recommend Cook Unity. Just visit cookunity.com/Graham and use the code GRAHAM50 at checkout to get 50% off of your first order. Again, I have no idea how they actually make money on that type of discount, but I'm not questioning it. So the link is down below. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to the video. All right, now in terms of where the entire game changes, let's talk about what it takes to grow to $1 million. For most people, once you reach this point, your investment returns might start outpacing how much you're able to make from your job. Like just consider that with a 20% swing upwards, that's a $200,000 gain without you lifting a finger. And from this point onwards, you could start looking at your investments as a way to provide you with income indefinitely without you ever running out. For example, when it comes to myself, I view every $100,000 in savings as really being worth $10 of spendable income a day, adjusted for inflation, because that's how much I'd be able to pull out without ever running out. That's why once you start viewing your money this way, you begin to realize just how significant every dollar is. So in terms of building and keeping $1 million to the point where you don't massively f it up, here's my advice. 1, no joke, diversify. I'm such a firm believer that if you're too concentrated in one asset class, one stock, one investment, one income source, one company, what are you waiting for? Take some chips off the table so that an AI bear market doesn't completely wipe you out. For me, this means I have 25% of my money in real estate, 35% in index funds spread throughout the entire world market, 15% in a Bitcoin ETF, and the rest in treasuries earning 4.2%. That way, should 1 or 2 markets fall, I'll be totally okay. 2, protect your downside. Again, once you've hit $1 million, unless you're aiming for $10 million, do yourself a favor and protect it from anything that might come your way. This could be a job loss, health issues, divorce, lawsuits, any one of those could wipe you out. That's why you really got to do your best to mitigate these concerns with things like good health insurance, LLCs, an umbrella insurance policy, and an alternative income source, just in case. 3, speaking of protecting yourself, make sure to keep every risk factor below 20% of your net worth. For example, probably not a good idea to put 100% of your money in cryptocurrency. Not a good idea to put all of your eggs into one rental property, or rely entirely on income from one company that you don't control. you get the idea. 4. Hire a better tax advisor. So even though people earning a W-2 paycheck, investing in index funds, and maxing out retirement accounts can only do so much in this category, beyond a certain point, if you're self-employed, it makes sense to look into more advanced or nuanced tax strategies to save a bit more money. And lastly, 5, live healthy. Like, it might sound really weird to say, but the better I've done financially, the more motivated I am to live as long as possible to be able to enjoy it. Like, I've worked really hard over these last 20 years, and I don't want to minimize the next 20 years by smoking, drinking, or just not treating myself well. In fact, I'll be honest, a few months ago, I realized I had not been to the doctor for a checkup in 5 years. And I went, I got everything checked, thankfully it came back fine, but I got lucky. Seriously, if you're watching this video, go and do this immediately, because here's what's crazy. Statistically, if this video gets 1 million views, that means over 100 of you watching have undiagnosed cancer that could be fixed if you go and catch it early. Seriously, just go and do this because maybe it ends up saving your life. I don't know how many views this video is going to get, but regardless, those are the numbers. Those are real. So go and do this, please, for me. That way, eventually, you could reach the next goal of $10 million. I've been calling these out in factors of 10 because really, from my experience, that's when it becomes a noticeable difference. Like going from $100,000 to $200,000 is about the same level up as going from $1 to $2 million in terms of what that lifestyle gets you. So once you 10x where you are today, brand new doors open up, and it's no exception with $10 million. More than likely, this is going to be a threshold that you're not going to reach by saving and foregoing Starbucks alone. Instead, you probably own your own business, you've saved and invested consistently while having a very high income and not blowing it all on cars and watches, or you have an OnlyFans. This is also a really unique spot because unless you're consistently making over $1 million a year, it's no longer financially worth it to work because your investment returns could easily outpace what you make from a job. Like, just consider that a 15% market swing higher is $1.5 million in gains that could potentially all be tax-free if you don't sell. That's why it's so important to keep a few things in mind. 1, focus on wealth conservation. I know this sounds kind of boring, but good estate planning is incredibly important here so your wealth doesn't get squandered by family members or by the government who takes it and spends it on who knows what. 2, you have to value time. Like, here's an example. A $10 million portfolio on average is going to increase by $700,000 a year. This means it's more profitable to pay somebody $1,000 to run your errands so that you could see your family for an extra day. 3, you gotta get good insurance. That way, you're gonna protect yourself because the more money you have, the bigger of a target you become. And finally, 4, keep a sleep at night fund. This is just something that you keep on the sidelines, something that's relatively safe, just so that you could sleep at night knowing that no matter what happens, whether that be a prolonged market downturn, a job loss, or whatever else might come your way, you have 12 to 24 months of runway to figure it out. Even though this isn't technically optimized for the highest returns, it's going to help you out tremendously, especially once you reach $100 million. It's funny, I was recently talking to Sahil Bloom on my podcast, The Iced Coffee Hour, and he made the argument that there's actually a point to becoming too rich, where more money actually starts to have a negative impact. At a certain level, you just become a target of lawsuits, people come out of the woodwork, and you have to question if someone likes you for you or what you have to offer. Like, when you could buy almost everything, what's the point when there's no one left to impress? Flying first class becomes boring. Buying another house just becomes a hassle. Any more money at a certain point doesn't add any more enjoyment, but just adds more complexity. Honestly, I'd say that at this level of wealth, very few people are probably watching, and even if they did, they probably wouldn't listen to me. So when it comes to that, all I have to say is this, because it really stuck with me. Money is absolutely going to change your life, but probably not in the way that you expect. Yes, it is true. Your first $10,000 is going to give you security. Your first $100,000 is going to give you freedom. Your first $1 million is going to give you options. And your first $10 million is going to give you complete financial peace of mind. But beyond that, it's not just about what you could buy anymore, but instead what you could experience. Really, the greatest luxury at every financial level is simply the ability to control your time. And the best part is that you don't need $10 million to do that. And I'll tell you, I've spoken with a lot of people worth hundreds of millions, and all of them agree. Their greatest moments are not buying the 5th car or the 3rd house or taking the 10th vacation of the year. Instead, it was all from when they were first starting out, building something from nothing, and getting the achievement for accomplishing what they've set out to do. Just remember, the point isn't to get rich for the sake of being rich. It's about being able to wake up excited each morning, be able to work on what you enjoy the most, and be surrounded by people who care about you, not the money you make. Beyond a certain point, real wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in time, happiness, fulfillment, and health. And really, all of those are things that you could start building today, regardless of how much money you have in your bank account. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. As a reminder, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that already. It means the world to me. Thank you again, and until next time.